Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful Wednesday. It's great to see, and we do have pretty active weather ongoing right now, and really through the next 48 hours or so, through much of the Midwest and into the Northeast, where we even have potential blizzard conditions on the way for some folks. Now, that's not all of it. We do have another kind of active storm track I'm watching for next week that will likely kind of work on through the country, and the models right now are really all over the place. So we're going to kind of break that down for you. I'll tell you what I think is the most likely scenario, but I am expecting another round of snow for some folks, potentially some new folks, as we go into that pattern change about a week or so from now. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. It's a great way to stay up to date. Also hit that bell for the latest notification so you're the first to hear about any uploads, and you'll be the first to see those new models and a breakdown of them. And go ahead and like the video and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I will also very briefly mention, if you haven't already ordered your 2025 GM weather calendar and you would like to, the link for that is in the description. I'm going to close orders off in about 5 days or so, just so we can get everyone's to them before the new year. So that is the plan there. So if you've been wanting to order one and you haven't, you've still got probably a couple of days, but go ahead and do it now before those orders close. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into the weather. And taking a look at the jet stream right now with our upper level water vapor loop, you can see we do have a pretty good little system working down out of Canada. It's pretty easy to see here on the water vapor loop. You're seeing all of this kind of water getting pushed out in front of the storm. And that is going to really ramp up some snowfall totals here into portions of the Northeast, the Great Lakes through the next couple of days. Some people are going to be looking at more than a foot of snow out of that before all is said and done. Other than that storm system, things actually remain pretty quiet. You will notice we do have some kind of a bit of the subtropical jet down here into Texas. This is going to ring out some rainfall over the next couple of days as well for you folks down there, as we get a little bit of return flow that is going to kind of maximize some lift and precipitation. So I am watching for rain down towards Texas, Louisiana, and kind of surrounding areas over kind of the rest of this week. But before we get there, let's go ahead and talk about the snow that's happening up into the Midwest. Now, you'll notice well up into Canada, even seeing plenty of snow down into greater Sudbury, if that's how you pronounce that. We've got Sault-Ste-Marie or Marie. I should probably know how to pronounce that up here into Michigan and the Canadian border there, down towards Toronto, seeing some snowfall, and then obviously in the United States here into Michigan, plenty of snow, even down into the Erie area, getting a good bit of snow today. And all this will slowly work on into the northeastern United States before the day is over. And we could see snow pretty far east, I think into Massachusetts, portions of Connecticut, northern New Jersey could get some flakes out of this as well. But really the real winners are going to be into the interior Northeast, and where we could see more than a foot of snowfall in some places. Now, outside of that, here's that rain down in Texas I was telling you about. Plenty of water vapor to support it, as we saw on the satellite loop. And all this is really just due to we're seeing high pressure begin to now bring flow back out of the Gulf of Mexico. And this is going to be important. This could kind of prime up the atmosphere a little bit, return some instability, and we could maybe see a little bit of severe weather with next week's storm system, depending on how it tracks. And we'll definitely kind of break that down for you a little bit as well. But that's what we're seeing out there right now. Now, something that has definitely picked up over the past day or two, our watches, warning, and advisory map. Completely different look than yesterday, as we now have plenty of winter weather advisories. They're in the purple, winter storm warnings in the pink, lake effect snow warnings in that kind of aqua blue, or maybe not aqua, I don't know what color blue that is, but in the blue, those are winter or lake effect warnings. And then down here into the mountains of West Virginia, these are actually blizzard warnings in effect for you folks, where we're going to have plenty of strong winds and blowing snow as this system works on through. And speaking of strong winds, everywhere here in the east that is in one of these beige boxes, just give it a second to load there, is in a wind advisory. So that includes the Midlands of South Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina, all the way up into portions of the mid-Atlantic there, from D.C. Up towards Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, all of Long Island, and then the Midwest from Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, basically the entire state of Iowa, with the threat of some strong winds today. So we're going to see plenty of active weather out of this storm system. It is going to be quite the doozy. Let's go ahead and time it out for you. We'll start up here into the Midwest, and this is also where we're going to do our Meteorology in Minutes segment today. This actually, I had this idea from somebody on Twitter that posted about this system not being a clipper system and just being a frontal system. And I realized that they're absolutely correct. And I've been calling it a clipper over the past couple of days. And it's understandable why myself and plenty of others thought this was a clipper, kind of just the way it's originating. It's coming up from Canada and then diving down into the United States at a trajectory that many clippers take, but you can also very easily tell this isn't a clipper, and here's why. This has fronts with it. So if you look at our center of low pressure, obviously a pretty strong low pressure for a clipper, it would have been at least, but notice how we have this troughing at the surface. I'll kind of try to draw a line through it. This surface trough tells me that we have cold air advection, or a cold front working where this trough is. And clipper systems do not have these big fronts with them. That's just not something they have. You can even see on the other side, we've got a warm front here that is on the normal side of the low pressure that you would see a warm front. So definitely not a clipper system, but it is understandable why myself and plenty others kind of have been calling it one. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect anything besides the classification of it. The impacts are not going to change whether this is a clipper system or a frontal system. It's still a storm system that is going to bring plenty of snow and wind. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about it. So this afternoon, snow is going to really ramp up here into portions of Canada, again, in those areas north of Michigan that we talked about, and then even into the state of Michigan itself, the upper peninsula getting snow out of this, the northern mitten of Michigan getting plenty of snow, and even some snow showers back here into portions of Wisconsin throughout your Wednesday afternoon. I do think will definitely be something that we see. And all of this continues through this afternoon. We get some lake-enhanced precipitation, not lake effect, but lake-enhanced precipitation off of Lake Superior and Lake Michigan with this storm system. So likely higher snowfall totals along the beaches themselves compared to a little bit further inland. But everyone's going to get snow out of this compared to the past couple of days where it's just been that squally lake effect type weather. Now, this is this evening about probably 5 o'clock Central Time, and notice these are some pretty feisty squalls, folks. This is going to be coming down hard and heavy. We've got blowing winds, we've got very heavy snowfall rates all at the same time. That's going to be enough to cause some issues for plenty of folks here through the state of Michigan, even down potentially into northern Indiana, seeing some of that. And then obviously the UP still racking up on plenty of snow. Now back out towards the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, not really anything for you out of this besides those gusty winds that we talked about, but all the snow here into Michigan, Indiana, portions of Ohio overnight tonight. And by the time we're waking up Thursday morning, this is whenever it will transition back to lake effect, but quite strong lake effect. Notice these winds coming out of the north here. We're going to have basically lake effect through almost the entire upper peninsula of Michigan, at least close to the beaches. Obviously, it'll taper off a little bit as you go further inland. And then this kind of western corner of the state of Michigan, on the Mitten itself at least, going to get heavy lake effect tomorrow morning. And that should continue throughout the afternoon hours of your Thursday, just nonstop lake effect, and it's really going to pile up here. We'll get a little bit of a change in wind direction, I think, overnight Thursday into Friday, and that'll, mess a little bit with who's seeing the lake effect, but still, it's not slowing down by any means. And because of that, take a look at some of these snowfall totals. This is the blend of models. Up into the upper peninsula, a foot plus, very likely, I think, for many folks here. But overall, probably half a foot to a foot, but those isolated spots getting more than a foot. There into the upper peninsula. Again, the closer towards the beaches you are on the north side, the higher end likelihood you'll see is significant snow. And then the west coast of Michigan getting plenty of snow here as well. The northern mitten here, again, a foot and a half would not surprise me, but all the way down the coast, probably averaging out around half a foot. Now, it's lake effect, so remember, it's going to be very dependent on your location. A town up the road could get a foot and you could get 2 or 3 inches. That's just the way it goes. But you'll also notice even some snow breaking containment here. We said Wisconsin could see some flakes, and I'm not expecting heavy snow accumulations in Wisconsin. Same thing for Indiana, outside of northern Indiana. Now, this little northeastern corner of the state, yeah, you could get some heavy snow upwards of half a foot. Not impossible, but probably likely around 3 inches. Give or take some, of course, in that area. And then even into Detroit, back down into Ohio. This is not fully lake effect. It's lake enhanced, so some of it will make it inland. And we could see a dusting upwards of a couple of inches in some isolated spots here through the Detroit area and back down into the northern half of Ohio. And then higher totals up here near Cuyahoga County, points north towards the Erie area there into the state of Ohio. All right, what about the Northeast? Plenty of viewers up this way, and by the way, I appreciate y'all viewing from the Northeast. Actually, I would argue I might have more viewers from the Northeast than the Southeast, especially during wintertime, of course. So I do appreciate you folks trusting a Carolina boy to give you the forecast. But here we go. This afternoon, we've got some snow already working in through portions of New York State, there through the Finger Lakes. But I think the real show begins tonight into the Northeast. This is about 6 p.m. local time. And you'll notice a lot more of this precipitation beginning to get out of the Great Lakes and into the Northeast through Vermont, New Hampshire, even down towards Massachusetts. We've got some rain, snow, and maybe even a little bit of sleet or freezing rain trying to mix in here back towards Pennsylvania during the evening hours. And as we go later into the overnight, things really pick up. This is getting towards 9, 10, 11, and then into about the midnight hour here. Again, full-blown winter storm here up into portions of the interior Northeast through upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, into much of Maine. Even kind of, not all the way down to the beaches maybe, but areas pretty far south into Maine going to see some of that snow. And then the dreaded rain-snow line sets up shop here right along the I-95 corridor. Now, western Massachusetts and kind of the hills here into Connecticut, where we have some higher elevation, I think this will be snow for you. But if you're down near the beaches, kind of down towards Bridgeport, into Rhode Island, into the Cape, probably even Boston itself, this is likely going to start as rain. But I do see a possible scenario where this tries to maybe get a little bit of snow by tomorrow afternoon. Now, this is tomorrow morning. You'll notice still that shield of snow, but look out west. We've got snow squalls working in, and this is where the cold front actually is. It's right in here, so that's why we're kind of struggling to get snow at the coast here into New England. But eventually, this front itself will swing on through during your Thursday afternoon. That'll bring snow squalls and potentially a quick change over to snow itself. Notice right here, this is tomorrow afternoon. Kind of the shield begins to move away, but we've got some snow squalls in and around the Boston area. That could bring some snow. We've got heavy snow back into New Hampshire, Vermont, as the low pressure itself swings on through. And then we're back to a heavily lake effect dominant pattern, but some of this could break into the Northeast outside of the Great Lakes into the mountains, and maybe even a couple areas breaking containment of the mountains and trying to make a run at the I-95 corridor where we could see some festive flakes. And then that gets us into Thursday evening. And overnight Thursday, still heavy lake effect happening, but the storm system itself beginning to pull away and that very cold air working in behind it. Now, snow totals in the Northeast, I think the real winners will be, kind of Buffalo, Erie, the places that have been seeing it, the Tug Hill, but I do think up into Vermont, New Hampshire, into portions of Maine, and even into the hills out into western Massachusetts and southern Vermont, we could see a foot plus of snow in some of these areas. Would not surprise me at all. Again, I think the overall theme is going to be half a foot to a foot, but you get higher up in elevation here, I think a foot and a half going to be very possible. And then maybe even somebody gets crazy lucky on these highest mountaintops and gets close to 2 feet. Would not be the biggest shock in the world. Now, places outside of that area that could see some snow, I think northern New Jersey could definitely pick up on a little bit back towards the Scranton area. And you'll notice even here into the mountains, or not really the mountains, but the hills of western Connecticut here, you're picking up on some snow, 1 to 3 inches plus, maybe 3 to 5 in spots. That's definitely a possibility. The Boston area, I think flakes will fly at some point. Will it accumulate? We'll see. If you're lucky, maybe you pick up a quick dusting to an inch. In some isolated spots. New York City, festive flakes probably at most. Philadelphia, you'll be lucky if anything falls from the sky that's not rain out of this event. You'll also notice, though, back down towards West Virginia, we've got heavy snow into those mountainous terrains. That's where we have the blizzard warnings. In fact, let's not forget about you folks. I never really mentioned that. Let me back this up a little bit. You'll notice, look at this, very heavy snow squally weather. This is overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. That's the worst of it for you folks, and then probably a little bit of northwest flow during your Thursday and Friday as well. So I did not want to forget that. But again, blizzard warnings down that way for the wind combined with the snow. That's where it'll be more than enough for blizzard criteria down that way. All right, let's talk about what's coming up here on the horizon. And right now, it's all this big storm system. You'll notice that big lowering in heights over the Midwest into the Great Lakes and now into the Northeast by tomorrow. That's the current storm system. But you'll notice we get later into this weekend and a bit of a pattern change begins to set up. We've got ridging now in the east indicated by this kind of red color and this upward curvature to our height values, indicating a return of some warmer air. Now, you're going to hear all over social media that this is the start of the end for winter weather fans. We're going to get this big warm up and we're never going to cool back down. I'm not fully buying it, folks, and I do think we're going to get another storm system next week. Now, I do expect this next storm system to favor more of the plains in the Midwest than the East for snow, but I think it makes it far enough east that we get another cool down about a week or so from now. It's going to end this week quite cold for many folks in the East, then it'll warm up early next week, but by the end of next week, I think we're back to at least slightly below average temperatures for a lot of folks, and maybe even a return to some snow chances. We'll talk about that. And then, yeah, after that, right now, the ensemble suggests more ridging in the east, indicating a warmer pattern working back in. But folks, a couple days ago, the model said it was going to stay warm or cold through really all of December. So I think it's premature and immature to kind of write anything off. And I can guarantee you we're going to get more winter storms throughout the winter. It's quite common to get these little breaks. In fact, it was uncommon to get such a big cold shot to start December and kind of the way we ended November there. And it's the weather. I always say this. This is my fundamental rule of meteorology. What goes up must come down. It cannot stay the same forever. So yes, absolutely, it will warm up, and then it will cool back down eventually as well before winter is over. We're not even into astronomical winter yet. We're only meteorological winter. So plenty of time to go. And just don't listen to the folks that say winter is canceled here because of a slight warm-up. Even if that warm-up is prolonged, I'll add, it could go a week or two. I mean, that's very possible. This cold pattern went a week or two. But either way, winter's not over. Now, I did want to show this. This is the ensemble members for pressure values. So we kind of use this to see where low pressure could potentially form. There's the current storm up into the northeast. After that, high pressure works in, cold high pressure. But then you'll notice another storm system coming down out of Canada. This is Sunday afternoon. A lot of the models indicating here a strong storm up into southern plains and prairies of Canada and into the northern plains of the United States, bringing warm front, bringing cold front, and then a strong feisty system here. And I think this is what could bring our next snow chance as that crosses on through portions of the plains and the Midwest and even into the Great Lakes. And then that brings a cold front, and it's after that that the models begin to really lose touch a little bit, I think, and kind of go off into la-la land, and they're just struggling to come up with a solution. But I think what'll happen is we'll get that front across the eastern half of the country, and we'll likely get another boundary to set up somewhere in here, and it's at that point we'll have to watch for more low-pressure formation along that boundary. You can even notice that here. If I move this into about the 7 to 10 day time frame, you notice high pressure working in. That tells me we've got cold air, but we've got some of these little low pressure members still left around hanging along the coast, and even more kind of show up as you move it ahead into time. And the models just don't really know exactly what's going to happen. But I think the pattern is one that favors a storm system in the plains next week, rain in the east, and then another boundary setup that we could see more wintry precipitation out of. So we'll go ahead and move this ahead into time. Let me refresh the page so it wants to load properly. We'll move this ahead into time. And here comes that next storm system. Like I said, we've got plenty of rain down into Texas. This is the next couple of days into this weekend. Quite a wet pattern for you folks down there. And then we're kind of moderating a little bit in the east. And here comes the next storm system on the GFS, bringing some snow potentially into the plains. A lot of rain into the east. I do think that'll happen. I think we're going to warm up next week during the early half of the week. That will return rainfall chances. So that'll likely melt some of that lake effect that fell and whatever else falls in the northeast during the next couple of days. But then that front tries to cross, and you'll notice on the GFS, another storm system forms at the tail end of it. So here's the boundary I was talking about. That was the first storm system. Again, mainly was a rainmaker in the east, some snow out in the plains, not a lot, but some to note for sure. But then another boundary setting up. Here's our 540 line. Here's kind of our boundary, if you will. Cold air on this side, warm air on this side. And a storm system takes advantage of that and then kind of rides along that boundary about a week or so from now. And look at this. We got heavy snow into portions of the Ohio Valley up into the Midwest. We've got a strong cold front crossing the east. This could, again, bring another cold shot. Could also bring severe weather. I mean, that's a really potent front, folks. That crosses through about a week from now and then gets on through the northeast, and another return to some chillier air happens, and then potentially another storm system tries to form along this boundary. So a lot of question marks still, but I do think we're still in an active storm track here, and I think that track will be shifting. I think next week it'll start in the plains and then slowly work east, and then maybe slowly work east again as a couple storm systems try to cross on through. Now, like I said, the models are struggling, though, so that's just the GFS. Don't take it verbatim. The European, similar story here. Rain this weekend into Texas, and then here comes the next storm system into the northern plains by early next week, bringing rain to the east, bringing some snow to the Midwest, but also bringing another shot of cold air. And here's the European, does the same thing, fires another low pressure along this boundary, further north than the GFS did for sure. But again, that would bring heavy snow and, a lot of it somewhere, depending on where it fires, where the Arctic boundary is. And then that cold air tries to push east. And again, folks, by the time we're a week from now, we're back to below average in the east, and that's when we would have to watch for maybe another low pressure to try to form along this boundary here, and then that could maybe pose the threat of some eastern snow. But I'll reiterate this time and time again, the models are struggling, and right now we're really just in pattern recognition mode until they kind of come together on a specific storm signal and kind of try to iron out those details. All right, so the chance of snow within a 24-hour period with the European. This is the current storm. Obviously, it's going to snow in the Northeast like we talked about. A little clipper system this weekend and into early next week. It's trended a little weaker, though, and I think it's going to be more of a Canada event than the United States. So you folks up there in Canada, yeah, definitely you'll see some snow out of that. I even think the interior Northeast could get snow out of it, but nothing really for the I-95 corridor out of that one. Here comes the next storm signal, though. This is early next week. You'll notice snowfall chances increasing from the southern Rockies through the plains up into the Midwest and kind of hanging on. And then another little burst of snow chances around a week or so from now, maybe a little bit further out than that here into portions of the Ohio Valley and up into the Northeast. Again, looks like it's favoring the interior Northeast right now, but it's a week or so away, so we'll definitely watch the pattern. And then that gets us out in the la-la land past 10 days or so. GFS, same map, just a different model here. Starts the same way, little clipper system next week. You'll see that work on through. And then here comes the snow signal for early next week. This is around Tuesday. Same kind of general place that the European showed through portions of the plains into the Midwest there. And then you'll also notice a little increase into the Ohio Valley, into the apps from North Carolina northbound and up into the interior Northeast about 7 to 10 days from now. And then, like I said, after that, getting out kind of into La La Land. So I do think it's going to be an active track. I think we'll see more snow. I think we'll also see some rain. We'll see a slight warm up and a slight cool down. And then what happens after that towards Christmas is probably really anybody's guess. But latest temperature forecast from the ensembles on the GFS side, at least, a very chilly weekend in store as this final shot of significant cold air works in. Then we moderate a little bit early next week for sure. You'll notice that. In fact, I would say a good bit of moderation, getting a pretty good bit above average in the temperature department. And then another cool down behind that next storm system. And a week from now, we're right back to below average temperatures. And then after that, in the 10-plus day time frame, the ensembles are suggesting a return to warmer weather through much of the country as potentially some zonal flow tries to take over. And that would limit active weather across the lower 48. But like I've said, it's 10 plus days out from now. We got plenty of time to track it, plenty of time to monitor these pattern changes. Alrighty, folks, so that's all I got for you on this Wednesday. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like the video and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. Alrighty, y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.